anticipated matric results will be released. It's a tense time for the 2025 matric students and their parents. The founder of Learnergy, Ntsako Mhlanga, says the beginning of the year is the best time for pupils to set goals to achieve their desired academic outcomes. Joins me now live in the studio to shed more light on that. Ntsako, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Talk to us about what you call an intentional, structured academic goal setting.
So I think it's very important for us to not look at the matric results as a scary point in our lives, but rather a beginning of something new, right? And a lot of young people are going to be starting their year not looking back at their reports. Yeah. And I think it's very important, if we want to have the right academic results, to be intentional about how we set those goals. So instead of throwing away that report, it's time to dust it off and bring it back and go line by line to say, okay, what did we do well in? What did we not do well in? And I think it's also important to hold the learners accountable as well, to say, did the environment that I was in kind of help and be conducive to my academic success?
Now, the clarity that you say one seeks with setting these goals is a clarity that is not just for academics, but it is a clarity that builds confidence for problem solving. It's a different way of thinking about it. Talk to me about how you navigate that particular approach.
Yeah. So, you know, the one thing that we also do and urge for is accountability in our academic programs and in our academic progress. It's important for us to not just look at what's happening academically, but look at the overall environment that you are in. Are the friends that you're keeping conducive for your academic success? Is your wellness fine? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating the right things? And we need to also think about these things even in our homes. Are our parents or even our siblings creating a conducive environment for our learners? Yeah. You know, sometimes we find even the smallest things that we do are not helping our kids. We're blasting music on Sundays when they should be preparing for their school. Yeah. We have not set a specific corner for them to learn or study. So we need to look at the learner's life in an overall point of view, you know, to say, is the environment allowing for a conducive place for our young people to succeed? And the academics are just the output of that environment.
Yeah. I mean, I read this, I'm saying, well, both of them have now matriculated, so it doesn't really matter anymore. But how I would have approached it when they were coming in, I would have said, well, I looked at how you would have performed in January, how you would have performed rather in the first term, second term, and say, well, look, here's what we are targeting for in terms of a better mark.
Yes.
You're saying that's a little bit vague?
It's not necessarily vague. I think we're just not getting to the crux of the problem, right? We all want certain things, but we don't actually look at the work that it takes to get there. So if the learner achieved a 60 as their final marker aggregate, we cannot expect an 80 in the first term, right? They're going to get somewhat of the same result. And it's also not projecting the results that you want for the learner. It's about also their progress and their academic requirements. You know, do they have everything they need to even achieve that 80? So we may project that, but are we creating an environment for them to get that result? And I think that's where the conversation needs to be. And also allow them to lead with the conversation. They're the ones that are in charge of their marks. They are aware of the school that they're in. They're aware of the teachers that are there. Perhaps it's even just a learner sitting next to them that is causing the distraction. Yeah. So it also holds them accountable to their own journey. And also remembering that we're not raising kids, guys. These are adults that are going to be grown one day and are going to have to solve problems and navigate failure. So once we understand that, as much as, yes, we want to coddle them and keep them here because the world is so big and scary, right? But these are adults. Yeah. These are going to be people responsible for our society. These are people going to be future broadcasters. So we need to teach them those values right now.
Yeah. So you're saying it's a day one type of situation. So as the year starts, from the very first day is what you need to set this ecosystem from that particular premise. So talk to me about that. How do I set that? Because parents, I suppose, they battle with the fact that they need to be the ones who bring the support. So how do parents then set that ecosystem from day one for them to be able to set realistic goals, but also to engage with those goals and to be held accountable?
So a very healthy and open and effective communication channel needs to be established. A lot of the time, our young people, we view our parents as our heroes, as, you know, people that are sitting on a certain pedestal and we're here. And it's time for our parents to kind of humanize themselves themselves a little bit. This also allows the generation to connect with them on a more vulnerable level. We're not talking about something that could be achieved, and it's quite time bound. So the learners only have 4 terms to make sure that they achieve all their results, achieve their academic goals, and also reach for their dreams. Some are choosing subjects this year, some are writing their subjects for the final time this year. So a certain level of vulnerability is encouraged, and not necessarily badgering of the young one, but just to facilitate that ownership, to say, hey, did you feel like you put in enough work last year? And also creating an example. Perhaps there's an example in your own life. Maybe you can say, you know what, I wish I went to the gym 5 times a week, but I only went 3. Yeah. What about you? How many times did you want to study? So relating with this generation, I think it's very important for us to also understand who they are. They're a very self-aware generation, but once we come from a point of understanding that awareness and understanding those emotions, then that communication channel can be open. I would highly recommend that conversation happens today. I don't want to say it's too late, but we can have that safe and open conversation so that by the time day 1 arrives, they feel ready. They feel like they have the confidence to tackle the year.
Yeah. What tools do you dispatch at Learnergy that assist them?
So it's that combination of the two, right? So we said, listen, academics are the output. What we need to take care of is the learner's well-being. Mentally, are you okay? Emotionally, are you okay? Are there any social constructs that are contributing to the negative or the regression of your academics? And we solve that part. So the education stuff only comes later. We focus on your well-being. So we combine the teen coaching, the educational psychology, and the social help of the learner while also fixing the academic part. So that's how we've married the two together.
Right. And how does that intersect with, I suppose, the other support systems that are there, like your SADC, that particularly assist at the mental health level?
We don't separate the two.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we get inundated with all the support thrown at us. You know, we have to go to point A to get this and point B to get this. And we're saying we are one point to get all of it coming together. And we address the family issues as well. You know, the one thing I really wish we could bring to the forefront this year is the issue of families and how families can come together. The isolated approach to academic success cannot continue. The isolated approach to a learner's success cannot continue. So we bring all of that together in one space so that you don't feel like you have to go to different points to receive something you're supposed to be receiving at one place.
Yeah, how do you manage that in blended families, maybe families that are not male-led, father doesn't stay with the mother? How do you bring them together in that kind of context?
So that's actually the fun part, because now we get to work with different characters. And a lot of the time, so we have an analogy. When you arrive there, you kind of dress as your superhero, right? Because every learner has their superpower. And you realize that with adults, you're never really dealing with adults. We're just dealing with very grown-up kids. And we tackle that. We tackle the inner child. What in you needs to be reignited for you to facilitate and come together as a family? You know, the one beauty that we don't realize is blended families. It's different. It's blending of ideas, blending of psychologies, blending of traumas, blending of successes as well. So instead of using that as a weapon, let's use it as a tool. If this person is good at structure and creating discipline in the house, let's bring that out. How do we bring that into the family? If one is in charge of bringing the fun, then we make sure that we facilitate that in the right way. So it's not the blending of just families, but it's a blending of different personalities to make sure that education success is the end goal.
Ntsako, appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for your time.
And that's Ntsako, founder of Learnergy, as we anticipate the release of the matric results.